Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classics Known Classics. This is episode number 1340 and Doubleshot number 1234. I got two Marvel trades. This first one is kind of a finale in a way of the fourth volume for this series. It is Doctor Strange, Volume 5, Secret Empire. Yes, a tie-in to, by far, the most hated crossover in the last 5 years. Though, the crossover, how people hate the crossover. But this tie-in is actually really good. Yes, you're probably thinking, that's a shocker. Yeah, that's the thing when it comes to Secret Empire. The tie-ins are 100% better than the main book. Okay, Captain America himself, a Hydra Cap, does show up in the book. Yes, he does. Is he like Carnage, who did like a couple years later after this, where he actually fights the characters? No, he doesn't. He just shows up like, oh, hi, I'm here. Oh, yeah, main villain of the story is Baron Mordo, which, good. That's fine. I have no problem with Baron Mordo being the villain of the storyline. Yeah, by the way, this four-part is written by Dennis Hopeless. Yes, this is a strange period of time for Doctor Strange. Like before, Donny Coates was taking over the book with the raft of stuff and publishing here. We have Dennis Hopeless doing the first few issues in here. The last two issues are done by John Barber. I mistakenly thought that John Barber did all six issues. I was actually quite wrong. It was Dennis Hopeless who co-wrote some issues, which was quite interesting. Now, in the tie-in, like somehow Baron Mordo, thanks to stolen magic, it was later, where apparently he has taken the Sink of Sanctorum and put it on the side of the Chrysler building of all things. I'm like, really? Yep. Oh, and by the way, guess who tries to break in to take down Mordo? Daredevil, of course. And here's the interesting thing about this tie-in. It features Doctor Strange team up with the new Defenders. Well, the current version, the one Bendis assembled. Though this one includes not only like Luke Cage, like basically the one from the Bendis run, plus like Spider-Woman and a few others. And they have a team up in here with all people. Wilson Fisk. Yeah, by the way, this is a really cool cover. It comes from, I think, like issue 23, where Wilson Fisk has got a magic wand, and the Punisher's got, not the Punisher, the Doctor Strange has got a machine gun, which that I thought was really cool. Now, how he meets up with the Kingpin is quite interesting. Because this is before he became the mayor of New York, mind you. Yes, this is just before he did that. So, basically you have Doctor Strange, I think it's like Tim, Jessica Drew, Foggy Nelson. Actually, it was Ben Urich. Yeah, Ben Urich. Like, what the heck is Ben Urich doing the pages of Doctor Strange? I mean, I get maybe Jessica Drew being here, but Ben Urich? A character who has never appeared in the pages of a Doctor Strange book before, but yeah, he's here. And they just happen to find a limo that's bulletproof. But who owns this limo? Wilson Fisk, of course. Yep. By the way, this is basically him just after the wrap-up of his brief ongoing series. I'm not kidding about that. This is basically his next appearance he made just after his series wrapped up. He appeared in this storyline, and then he got elected mayor of New York. Which they actually reference basically that miniseries, that brief run in the Punisher book, which I'll talk about basically next. Yeah, Punisher, talk about after this. So, they basically take on some witch who had a previous deal with Wilson Fisk, steal some weapons, get some magical items, just take on Baron Mordo, and then they break into the Second Santorum, take down Mordo, and, well, everything is started back normal. They were not able to undo the Dark Dimension, but eventually that wasn't done anyways in the main book. But that tie is actually pretty damn good. I mean, who would not want to read a book featuring two characters who had a hand in the creation from basically, the thing with these two characters is that Stan Lee had a hand in creating both of them. Well, technically Stan Lee is credited for creating Wilson Fisk, but in the case of Doctor Strange, it's all Steve Ditko. But this is quite interesting. I mean, have you heard of a book where Doctor Strange teams up with Wilson Fisk? Or at least him appearing in a Doctor Strange book? Because if you look up any previous Doctor Strange book published since the 60s, Wilson Fisk has never appeared in this book before. Never. And kudos for Dennis Hopeless for doing something different. Yep. The John Barber one kind of felt like a continuation of... It felt like a continuation of the style that Jason Aaron basically was doing. With someone being there, and there was some Monster of the Week type of thing, like this Haunted Girl. It's an okay two-parter, but not to wrap up the fourth volume. This book is just really, really good. Yeah. Thoroughly enjoyable. Interesting thing comes to this book. Now, for basically the first two issues, basically you have Chris Bachalo doing the cover artwork, which that's interesting because generally he's been like the main cover artist since this volume started. And then like with issue 23 and 24, it's Noriko Henderson. Now, who also is the interior artwork as well. Now, the 25 and 26. Now, both are by John Barber. But 25 has got a ton of artists up. But the past sequence over, it's Kevin Newland, Scott Hanna, Dex Devines, Mike Morales, Terry Pollock, Tom Palmer, and Dan Brown. I think it's pronounced, yes. Dan Brown. The presence that was by Juan Ferretti and how about Turia. Nico Hearn does issue 26. And this book here, that's the end of volume 4. Yep, here it is. All 4 books that contain the 4th volume for Doctor Strange. Yep, the first volume, which is basically started from Jason Aaron. The Way of the Weird. Volume 2, The Last Days of Magic. Volume 4, Blood and Aether. That's 3. 4, which is that this is the end of Doctor Strange's Jason Aaron and Mr. Misery, and this here, Secret Empire. This is the end of Volume 4. Yes, yeah. This volume was this series was technically resumed under Volume 4. The first issue came out in 2015, and so after a little over 2 years being published, it was basically right at the issue 26, but would have been the 27th issue for the series for this volume, anyways. It was basically resumed the original numbering. Though they went with the Volume 1 numbering, which was a continuation of Strange Tales numbering, even though Strange Tales came back after the book ended and just ignored that. I have no idea why. That's just basically how it is. I would have thought, though, they would have basically kind of like how many issues have been published, which is a little over, probably about 200 issues, but basically no. Next issue is issue 380, which that's quite interesting to get hands on. Now, that's actually the start of Don Nicolas' run with the book. His run was just... Here's the strange thing about that run. It's the same length as Jason Aaron's run. I'm not kidding about that. It's roughly 20 issues. But you'll get a chance to discuss... I'll get a chance to start that in the future. But yeah, that's the end of Doctor Strange Volume 4 before the start of the triple digit numbering for its 2 relaunches under Mark Waid. Yeah, there roughly were 2. The second one basically ended the book. Alright, now we're coming to the finale of Matthew Rosenberg's run for The Punisher. Yep, street by street, block by block. Third volume that collects the final issues of Punisher Volume 11. Yeah, I believe this is Volume 11. Yep, issues 12 to 16. Yes, Rosenberg is definitely still the writer of the book. The artwork is done by Simon Koritsky. And as seen the cover, who is punishing with this cover? I see the Black Widow. We see Moon Knight, Night Thrasher. I think this is either... I'm not sure which Night Thrasher's one is. They don't say. They don't say if this is the Time Dispatch one, who first appeared Contest Champions, or it's the one that basically became Night Thrasher in New Warriors Volume 4. But this Ghost Rider here, you might be thinking, is that Johnny Blaze? No. He's pointed by him, and I know who this is. This is Dan Ketch. Yes, Dan Ketch. Johnny Blaze's half-brother, which, that's cool. So, we see basically Punisher's journey in this book when he escaped from Bayaga from the last street, where apparently Sister Mercy's apparently dead. So, he's hitchhiking going home, kills some of his basically some people. He gets back to New York. Zemo has apparently followed him to New York and meeting with Wilson Fisk. Now... Next comes some very head-scratching ones. Now, Wilson Fisk has a pretty good idea who Zemo is. Now, this is not the original Zemo, the one who was an actual Nazi. Well, the one who actually was basically part of World War II, who fought in the Axis. No, this is his son. The first was Heinrich Zemo. This is Hamlet Zemo, the one that made his first appearance in the 1970s. Though apparently Wilson Fisk, the way Rosenberg writes it, it's like he forgets that the group that he forms in this series, this book, actually existed. Yeah, he completely forgot this group existed because there's a whole bunch of public info about it. Oh yeah, and by the way, in this book, there are frequent jokes at Punisher's expense. Plus, there's actually really thing that's written in the book where he doesn't like, or apparently cops actually are fans of his. They actually have a symbol posted on their cars. He actually hates that. Yeah, he does. And I've heard apparently in some cities that some police officers are actually using the Punisher's skull on their police cars. Which I'm like, really? Why the heck would you prove with actions to Punisher? He kills criminals with AK-47s, grenade launchers, and basically using military hardware to kill these people with. Yep. So, yeah, and then Zemo decides to do something quite dumb. Okay, so Zemo reforms the Thunderbolts, and apparently Wilson Fisk has never heard of the Thunderbolts. It's like, okay, you better do some good. Oh yeah, and by the way, Zemo decides to resume his old identity from the 90s as Citizen V. I'm like, what? Seriously? Yeah, I'm like, did the press forget about Thunderbolt existing? Apparently they did. Yeah, the way that it's written here, apparently the press has completely forgotten about Thunderbolts. Because, here's the thing, the Thunderbolts are a publicly recognized team. Even though, yes, at this point, they've been gone for about a couple years. But, people know who they are in the Marvel Universe. The Avengers have teamed up with them. Also, we brought back Radioactive Man. Yes, Radioactive. This group is comprised of Zemo as Citizen V, Moonstone, good on basically Matthew. I was remembering that she's part of this group. The Fixer. I'm like, really? The Fixer? Wow, that's like he really dug up old characters people have seen sometime. He also in Jigsaw, because of course Jigsaw, and the Ghost, who has been Thunderbolt before in the Jet Parker stuff. Yeah, I'm not kidding about that. He was a member of Thunderbolts during the Jet Parker run, when it was basically Mars version of the Suicide Squad. Now, the thing is, where the heck does Zemo even find the old costumes from the 90s? I have no idea. But why in the world would the press even forget about Thunderbolts? Or forget the fact Zemo has been Citizen V all along? Like, okay. Like, apparently they completely forgot about the fact that, okay, here, hi, I'm Citizen V. Hi. And I'm surprised, like, wait, we know who you are, Zemo. Take off the damn mask. I'm like, when I read this again, I'm like, really? Did Matthew Rosenberg actually forget the fact that the press already know who Thunderbolts are? I mean, it's been clearly established since the 90s. Yeah, so, Punisher, oh yeah, by the way, Zemo has apparently brought some Hydra agents with him to frickin' New York City, who pose as UN soldiers. Yes. The United Nations. And apparently there's freaking tanks in New York City. I'm like, really? Okay. And apparently Wilson Fisk signed off on the fact that there are tanks going down the streets of New York City. Which, by the way, in real life, you probably would not see this, because I'm sure it's illegal for the military to drive their tanks to the freaking city. I'm sure it is, but I don't really know, because, well, I never studied the laws in New York City. Oh yeah, by the way, Punisher finds out that these soldiers are in fact Hydra agents. Oh yeah, and here's a really cool... Now, there's a couple of really cool moments with Will Fisk in here, where he basically mentions to Zemo, like, oh yeah, I got a book coming out, I'm writing a book right now. It's like, okay, I know a biographer who could help you, but she's dead. She got killed by some madman. She got killed by freaking Bullseye in the pages of Old Man Logan. Just get back at Old Man Logan. And I'm like, really, Fisk? Okay, so my guess is the reason why Rosenberg mentioned that, because he created Sarah, and he probably was not very happy with the fact that character he spent time in developing over the course of a 5-issue run gets killed off in someone else's book. He probably wasn't happy with that. So he's like, yeah, too bad I got killed off. I mean, the way he wrote the Kingpin by facial expression seemed like he was really angry. I'm sure eventually Punisher's going to kill Bullseye for what he did to Sarah. I'm sure. Oh yeah, and then when he finds out later on that, oh yeah, these UN soldiers got Hydra uniforms underneath, he's like, what? Seriously? Get the police on them. I'm sure he probably would say that. But yeah, he's actually upset that Hydra agents are in New York City. Because, well, even though Will Smith is a known criminal, he's American. Because he can't stand fascism. Yeah, he basically hates Zemo for being a fascist. Which anybody can basically, I can buy the fact he hates it. So Punisher at one point is saved by Black Widow of all people. Yes, the Black Widow. And they form a team to take on Hydra. Oh yeah, and I love this funny moment where Punisher talks to Mark Spector, Moon Knight, where he's like, hi Mark, and Mark's like, hi Frank, and Frank's like, you still crazy? And then Mark's like, you still killing criminals? I thought that was so hilarious. I mean, as far as I know, Rosenberg, this is the first time I can think of Rosenberg's ever written Moon Knight. I know it's been suggested on Twitter that he or Danny Cotis would take over the Moon Knight book, but this is just quite hilarious. Oh yeah, he has no idea who Night Thrasher was, which, okay, I can buy that. Despite the fact Night Thrasher is publicly known, I'm sure that probably at the time when New Warriors were acting, he probably either was out of the country or probably just reading newspaper. Oh yeah, and by the way, in this book, there are frequent old man jokes thrown at basically Punisher. Because he's old. Like, how old he's supposed to be? I don't know. Because it was retcon, I think when Greg Rucka's run, where even though that originally he's a veteran in Vietnam, it was retcon in the Greg Rucka run, he was actually not a veteran in Vietnam, but Persian Gulf. Or some other war. Yeah, just basically Marvel's slow moving continuity. Oh yeah, by the way, and somehow Nick Fury... Oh, and one little fun little factor they do not fall up in here. Punisher tells Black Widow apparently Nick Fury sold him out to Zemo. She's like, what? How? And that's a plot thread never explored in here. Yeah, I'm like, seriously? Yeah, as far as I can tell, this never actually explored. Yeah. You ask for why Nick Fury decided to send off the Zemo. Like, here's the thing. Also, guest parents about the Winter Soldier gets no lines here, by the way. So, after, of course, they take care of, well, the Thunderbolts. Oh, and by the way, Rachel Cole Ives returns in here like, wow, that's something. Who would have thought this one would return? I mean, she has not been seen since the Family Emerson's run. Yeah, it's been that freaking long. I mean, she's a creation of Greg Rucka. She's from his run. And I'm not really sure why she's even here in the first place. I mean, yeah, people probably, like, people reading this, probably like, man, we haven't seen you in, like, about 3 years. I'm like, what the heck are you even doing here? That's a really good question. I'm just checking something here. So, yeah. So, apparently, at the end of this book, we have the apparent death of the Punisher. Which, like, that's kind of weird. Why in the world would they kill the Punisher for? But they did. Yep, and they kind of somehow confront the fact Punisher's dead, even though he really isn't. Because the next appears pages of frickin' Ravencroft. And, by the way, when this series ended, it was briefly replaced by Punisher Soviet, which had Garth Ennis come back to the book. And this book's set in the Max Universe. And that's been pretty much it for the book. Now, final thoughts on this really long run. I mean, yeah, I was mentioning it like 27 issues. I can buy that. I mean, look at this. This right here, these 5 trades, this is the entirety of Matthew Rosenberg's run. Punisher War Machine, Volume 1. Punisher War Machine, Volume 2. Punisher Volume 1, Ward Frank. And plus, loves to return to the classic Punisher logo. Volume 2, War in Biagia. And this trade here. Yep. By the way, I give this book roughly a 9.5 out of 10. This of course, like, if anybody's ever looked up, like, any book Matthew Rosenberg, this book is shockingly his longest book he's ever done. No joke. It's the longest one he's ever done because Marvel apparently has had this thing where they keep canceling his books. Excuse me. A lot of the time for, like, no reason at all. Yeah, no reason. Yeah. Because if you look at, like, a lot of his books, like, usually collect, like, 1 or 2 trades. This is one of, like, 2 books actually collected more than 1 or 2 trades. The only book lasts about this length was his run for Kenny X-Men, which was 22 issues and 1 annual. Yes, the first 10 issues were basically weekly series he co-wrote with Ed Bronson and Cody Thompson, but that counts as part of his run. 22 issues. And it is something Marvel keeps him employed, despite the fact they keep canceling his damn books. That or the fact he's probably only doing 5 issues. Yeah. But this overall is just really, really... Now, this was a fantastic run. Now, of course, I do have some more Punisher coming. Don't worry about that. As a matter of fact, my next comic corner is going to be discussing a Punisher miniseries from War of the Realms. Yep, which I think was either published at the same time as, like, toward the end of this run, or some other time. I'm not really sure. I'll look up later. So yeah, that's it for this particular review. Next review will be a review of the newest episode of the 7 Deadly Sins. Okay? See you in the next video. Bye.